Joey in Akron, you had a question about life after death.
Yeah, but
Welcome to
first, I'd just like to get your position clear. From a past episode, I heard that you said you didn't believe in life after death.
Correct.
That there's not a lot of good reason why you should.
Oh, actually, I've gone way further than that. I think the idea of a soul is the single most obviously wrong and dead subject in all of theology, because of what we know about identity in the brain, the fact that physical manipulation of my brain can fundamentally turn me into a different person, different memories, different personalities, different beliefs. We know from patients who've had hemispherectomies, splitting the corpus callosum, that you end up with two distinct personalities communicating independently. One of them believes in God, one of them doesn't. You can look up V.S. Ramachandran's talk at, I forget which conference it was, but it's probably almost a decade ago now. Everything that has been attributed to the soul has either neither been connected to anything like a soul or identifiable as a function of the brain, a function of what the mind does. So when my brain dies, do we have any good reason to think that anything substantial that makes me me continues to live or exist in any sense at all? Because if we manipulate my brain, does that mean that there's, let's say that my atheism is a result of some brain damage, because I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. Maybe I got hit on the head. Maybe something happened in my brain. I've got a tumor. It's not a tumor. That's the worst Arnold impression ever. It's not a tumor.
I thought it was Jewish doctors in Florida.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Arnold would have been. It's not a tumor. So that's what makes me an atheist, is this tumor. Does that mean that there's a Christian soul trying desperately to manipulate my brain and failing to do so because of this tumor, because of this thing in my brain? If so, when I die, doesn't that soul go on to heaven because it was a Christian soul that was trying to do this and something about the physical brain blocks it? And if that's the case, then the soul notion becomes even more useless, because now it has nothing to do with what I do, because maybe what I do is, how do you tell the difference between somebody who's got a soul that wants to do bad or a brain that wants to do bad with a soul that wants to do good? And by the way, in those hemispherectomy patients where you end up with two distinct personalities, does God stick an extra soul in there? Does the soul get split in half and half of it goes to heaven and half of it goes to hell? I mean, and Sam Harris has pointed out that in the case of twinning in the fetus, does a soul get implanted at conception and then it splits into twins? Does God add an extra soul there? Do they have a half a soul or maybe a fourth of a soul if we get quads? And then sometimes the twin is reabsorbed. And so if that happens and there was a second soul, does that mean now there's a person with two souls? None of this makes any sense. And all of it is contraindicated by what we know about the brain, about how my personality manifests, about how my desires manifest. That's a long answer to say that.
And if there's no soul, then what of you is going to be in the afterlife?
Yeah. Not only is there no evidence, good evidence for a soul or an afterlife, but there's incredibly good evidence that this cannot be the case. Mm-hmm. And there's a really good book. Go ahead. I'm going to look up the name of this book so I can recommend it.
Yeah, I guess I would just say I don't necessarily believe in the concept of a soul in the traditional religious sense. I guess it's just more of I wonder if even if someone does have split brain personality, I feel like there still is an essence to them that's not separated. It's sort of like
there's a body. there's a part of the brain part of the body called the brain that is there, and presumably there is some basic intents, like they got to eat and breathe and these sorts of things. So no, it's not like there's two people there.
I'm not able to find this book.
I think too, if this person, was able to meditate, they could still, experience themselves. I think there's always like a bedrock of consciousness that they can look to be like, this is essentially what I am. And
well, that might be true, but how does this get us to an afterlife?
I mean, it's not like it's not like you have reason to think that consciousness survives death.
Well, we assume that, when we're done, we're done. When we're dead, that's it. But when you think about it, I mean, our cells die all the time. Right now you're a different person physically than you were when, you were a teenager.
Yes, but I mean, but there's an aspect of continuity where I am constantly redefining me as I change as well. When I die, when my body shuts down, when my brain shuts down, when there's no more electrical chemical energy being produced in my brain, what would make us think that anything about my consciousness would continue on in any recognizable sense? I know my atoms will continue, and they'll fertilize the plants and whatever decides to eat me, or entertain the medical students that do autopsies on my remains. But the self, the person, what we would traditionally identify as a soul, seems to me to be consciousness and the mind, which are the product of a physical brain. And I don't see any reason to think any of that survives death.
Even though the idea might be appealing, it's just wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's very appealing. I'm sure somebody will probably text me with the name of that book. I actually saw the author at Imagine No Religion 9, I think, outside of Toronto, and got a copy of his book. And for whatever reason, his name and the book's name are escaping me. Margaret Downey will beat me up over it. But anyway, I want to go ahead and get back to Teddy. But yeah, I don't believe in the afterlife because there's no evidence for it, and there is some evidence against it.
Okay. I got another friend. Do you think he could talk to me a bit about veganism?
No.
We've kind of exhausted that subject.
So I'm happy to have the discussions outside of the show. It's not relevant to the show, and tons of people complained, including people involved with the show, that call with Vegan Gain seemed to just be, Matt's going to use the Atheist Experience as some sort of prop to, I don't know, have irrelevant discussions.
Okay.
And we do get on tangents occasionally.
Well, yeah,
that's fine.
But the fans of the dude that called, who doesn't get to lecture me about morality because he threatens people with knives, but they don't seem to. I'm starting to. I shouldn't say that. No, we're not going to go anywhere near it. I'm not going to make a statement on the show.
Stop while you're ahead.
Thank you, Joey. I will stop now.